Oahu, Hawaii. Early morning, December 7th, 1941. The sky is still dark enough to feel unfinished. Along the northern coast of the island, waves break evenly against the shore, indifferent to schedules and alerts. At Opana Point, a remote radar station perched on high ground. Two young privates sit inside a wooden shack. Headphones on, eyes fixed to a glowing scope. Private George Elliott is nearing the end of his shift. Radar duty is new, experimental, barely trusted. Most officers still think of it as a training tool, not a warning system. The men here are not decision makers, they are observers. Their job is to report what they see, not decide what it means. On the radar screen, a cluster begins to form, not a flicker, not interference, a steady return, large, moving. Elliott leans closer, recalibrates, checks the sweep again. The signal grows. At Fort Shafter, the Army's command headquarters, the morning routine is beginning. Phones ring quietly. Coffee is poured. Duty officers scan overnight logs with the comfort of repetition. There have been alerts before. Always false. Always resolved. Hawaii is considered distant from the war. Strategically important, yes, but psychologically insulated. If something were coming, surely it would announce itself more clearly than this. Back at Opana, the return intensifies. The size is wrong for a training flight. Elliott picks up the phone and calls the information center. The officer on duty is a lieutenant new to the position, filling in for a superior who hasn't yet arrived. He listens, asks questions, consults his expectations. The lieutenant knows that a flight of B-17 bombers is scheduled to arrive from the mainland that morning. He has been told to expect it. He has not been told to expect anything else. The radar report does not contradict that expectation. It simply doesn't confirm it cleanly. At Pearl Harbor itself, the harbor lies still. Battleships are moored in neat rows, prepared more for inspection than combat. Ammunition is locked. Anti-aircraft guns are unmanned. It's Sunday. Reduced readiness is normal. That normality is the most powerful force in the chain of decisions now forming. In intelligence offices across the island, fragments of concern exist but do not connect. Japanese negotiations in Washington have stalled. Messages have been intercepted, partially decrypted, incompletely understood. None of it says this morning. None of it says here. Each piece of information on its own is insufficient to demand alarm. Together, they form something else, but only if someone is prepared to imagine it. At Opana, Elliott insists the signal is unusually large. The lieutenant listens again. He hesitates. He does not dismiss the report outright. He contextualizes it. The distinction matters. "Don't worry about it," he finally says. "It's probably the B-17s." The call ends. The decision is not written down. It is not formalized. It is simply allowed to stand. Across the island, no sirens sound. No orders are issued. No commanders are woken. The machinery of defense remains idle, not because of negligence, but because of interpretation. This is the environment in which catastrophe often incubates. Not denial, but calm confidence that the world will continue behaving as it has before. In offices and barracks, men go about their routines. Some read newspapers. Others prepare inspections. A few sense unease they cannot articulate. There is no single moment to point to yet, only a narrowing window where certainty might have been challenged and wasn't. Shortly before 8 a.m., the sky over Oahu changes character. The sound arrives first. Unfamiliar engines, too many to count. Then the silhouettes, then the explosions. In command rooms, phones erupt. Reports flood in, contradictory and overwhelming. Aircraft are identified too late. Targets are confirmed only after they are hit. The same officers who dismissed ambiguity minutes earlier now confront clarity in its most violent form. The radar warning becomes obvious in hindsight, not because it was clear, but because everything else now is. As smoke rises from the harbor, a different kind of silence spreads. Not the silence of peace, but of recognition. The realization that the warning existed and was processed, and still did not compel action. The failure was not technological, it was human. A system trained to recognize patterns rejected the one that didn't fit expectation. Pearl Harbor is burning, but the deeper damage is already done. The attack did not succeed because no one saw it coming. It succeeded because what was seen did not sound alarming enough to break routine. And in the quiet spaces between those decisions, history turned. Pearl Harbor. Minutes after the first explosions, the initial shock is already fading into something more dangerous. Organization. Inside Fort Shafter, officers crowd into rooms not designed for crisis. Maps are pulled from walls. Phones are lifted, slammed down, lifted again. Voices stay measured, not because anyone is calm, but because calm is expected. Training takes over before emotion can. Reports arrive faster than they can be verified. Aircraft over the harbor. Battleships hit. Possibly friendly planes. Possibly not. No one has a full picture. Everyone has a fragment, and every fragment conflicts with another. This is not chaos, this is structure under stress. At Wheeler Field and Hickam Field, officers scramble to understand what they're seeing. Planes are burning on the ground, clustered, parked wingtip to wingtip, as ordered days earlier to prevent sabotage. A decision that made sense yesterday now amplifies destruction. Anti-aircraft crews rush to their guns, only to discover ammunition locked away under peacetime procedures. Keys are missing. Orders are unclear. Who has the authority to release live rounds? Who confirms this is not an exercise? Commanders hesitate, not out of cowardice, but because false alarms carry consequences too. No one wants to be the officer who fires on friendly aircraft, who panics prematurely, who breaks protocol without confirmation. The enemy does not wait for confirmation. Across the island, radar stations continue to detect contacts, now unmistakable. But radar is no longer the problem. Interpretation is. Warnings now compete with explosions for attention. At Pearl Harbor, smoke obscures visibility. Identification becomes harder, not easier. Orders to scramble of fighters are delayed by confusion over which runways remain usable. Pilots sprint toward aircraft without knowing where to go once airborne. In naval command spaces, admirals confront an unbearable realization. The attack is not a single blow. It is layered, deliberate, and still unfolding. The earlier assumption that any real attack would come with unmistakable signals collapses, but it collapses slowly, unevenly, as each officer processes the same truth at a different speed. Normalcy bias does not disappear instantly, it fractures. Some commanders act aggressively. Others wait for clarity that will never come in time. Authority becomes diffuse, not because leadership is absent, but because everyone is suddenly operating beyond the scenarios they were trained for. The second wave arrives, not as a surprise, but as confirmation. Airfields already damaged are hit again. Dry docks erupt. The scale of coordination becomes undeniable. This is not a raid. It is an operation planned to exploit delay. In that moment, the final illusion breaks. This attack did not succeed because it was invisible. It succeeded because the system absorbed warning after warning without escalating its meaning. By the time unanimity arrives, options have already vanished. As the attack subsides, a grim stillness replaces the noise. Fires burn uncontrolled. Ship's list. Men search for survivors in oil-slicked water. Inside command rooms, the questions begin forming, not yet spoken aloud. Who decided to wait? Who assumed routine? Who needed certainty before acting? The answers will not come quickly. They rarely do. But one truth is already unavoidable. The most critical decisions of the morning were made before the first bomb fell, in quiet rooms, under incomplete information, by people trained to believe that real danger would announce itself clearly. It didn't. And now, nothing that follows can undo that moment. Pearl Harbor. Shortly after 8:10 a.m., the air raid sirens have been sounding for minutes now, but inside command spaces, the atmosphere is almost eerily controlled. At Fort Shafter, senior officers finally gather around a shared operational picture, imperfect, smoke-obscured, and already outdated. Reports are no longer speculative. Ships are burning. Aircraft are destroyed. The attack is undeniable. But what remains uncertain is scope. Is this the main blow or a prelude? Are enemy carriers still within striking range or already withdrawing? Is this a localized disaster or the opening of a broader Pacific campaign? These questions matter because the next decision will determine whether the United States merely absorbs a blow or compounds it. Admiral Husband Kimmel and General Walter Short now face a different kind of threat. Not tactical confusion, but strategic paralysis. Every instinct urges action. Launch reconnaissance immediately. Sortie the fleet. Prepare for a possible invasion. Strike back if carriers are located. But every option carries risk. Sending damaged ships to sea could expose them to submarines. Launching uncoordinated air searches risks losing the last operational aircraft. Ordering aggressive countermeasures without confirmed targets could create a second catastrophe. And above all, there is a deeper uncertainty no one wants to voice yet. What if this attack succeeded because the enemy understood our procedures better than we did? Normal peacetime command structures are still in place. Authorization chains remain intact. No one has formally suspended the assumptions of peace, even though peace has already ended. The decisive choice is not dramatic, it is procedural. Rather than treating the situation as an open-ended emergency, requiring immediate decentralization and aggressive initiative, command authority remains centralized. Counterstrikes are delayed until clearer intelligence emerges. Reconnaissance is ordered, but cautiously. Sorties are planned, but not rushed. Defensive posture takes precedence over pursuit. This decision feels responsible, rational, even wise. But it locks the day's outcome into place. By choosing caution over speed, certainty over initiative, the window to locate and engage the Japanese carriers closes. Not suddenly, but quietly. The enemy slips beyond reach. The moment passes. Hours later, the realization lands with crushing clarity. No Japanese carriers are found. No immediate counterstrike is possible. The fleet that could have challenged them lies damaged, burning, or sunk. Pearl Harbor is no longer just an attack site. It is a strategic turning point already set in motion. The war will not begin with a decisive American response. It will begin with recovery. And that means the initiative, the most precious currency in war, is gone. As fires continue to burn into the afternoon, commanders walk through wreckage that no longer feels chaotic. It feels settled. The decision to wait, to confirm, to verify, to act deliberately now reveals its cost. Not because it was foolish, but because it belonged to a world that no longer existed after 7:55 a.m. The point of no return was not the first bomb. It was the moment leadership chose to behave as if clarity would arrive in time. It didn't. From this moment forward, the United States is no longer deciding how to prevent disaster. It is deciding how to live with one. Pearl Harbor. Early afternoon, December 7th, 1941. The attack has ended, not with a clear final moment, but with exhaustion. Smoke still rises from Battleship Row, drifting slowly across the harbor as if time itself has thickened. The water is littered with debris, twisted metal, aircraft fragments, oil spreading in dark, silent sheets. Sailors move deliberately now, no longer reacting, but enduring. Inside command posts, phones ring less frequently. Reports slow. The shock phase has passed. What remains is consequence. As casualty figures begin to stabilize, another reality takes shape, one far more strategic than the damage itself. The Pacific Fleet is not destroyed, but it is immobilized. Battleships are sunk or crippled. Dry docks are overwhelmed. Aircraft losses are severe. Fuel depots, miraculously spared, offer survival, but not immediate power. And still, the same question hangs unanswered. Where are the Japanese carriers? Without that answer, every decision is constrained. No pursuit, no retaliation, no restoration of balance. Washington begins demanding clarity, not emotionally, institutionally. What exactly has been lost? What can still fight? How long before the Pacific Fleet can function again? The answers are unsatisfying. Days, weeks, months. The true shock does not come from the wreckage. It comes from the realization that the war has begun on terms chosen entirely by the enemy. Japan did not just attack Pearl Harbor. It seized tempo. While the United States assesses damage, Japan moves. The Philippines, Malaya, Hong Kong, the Dutch East Indies. Each advance compounds the cost of hesitation that morning in Hawaii. Pearl Harbor becomes retroactively worse, not because of what was lost there, but because it delayed the American ability to contest what followed. The warning signs had existed, the radar contacts, the fragmented intelligence, the assumptions of routine. Now they are reinterpreted, painfully, as missed chances. By nightfall, Pearl Harbor is no longer a battlefield. It is an accounting office. Lists are drawn up, ships categorized, men counted. Commanders prepare formal reports that must explain not only what happened, but why nothing stopped it. Admiral Kimmel and General Short understand something before Washington says it aloud. Responsibility will need names. Not because they acted maliciously, but because systems demand someone to absorb failure. The collapse is not military alone. It is institutional. Confidence in peacetime assumptions. Confidence in warning systems. Confidence in the idea that disasters announce themselves clearly. All of it sinks quietly with the sun. Washington, D.C., late December 1941. Snow falls lightly outside government buildings, muffling the city. Inside the Navy Department, the mood is restrained, almost clinical. Desks are crowded with after-action reports, transcripts, radar logs, message traffic. No one raises their voice. No one needs to. The war has already answered. Pearl Harbor is no longer an event. It is a reference point. Every decision now begins with the phrase, "After December 7th." Investigations begin quietly, then publicly. Radar operators testify about contacts that appeared on their screens. Duty officers explain why those contacts were dismissed. Commanders describe the assumptions they carried into that morning. Assumptions shaped by months of alerts that led nowhere. No single failure stands alone. Each decision made sense inside its moment. Each warning sounded incomplete. Each delay felt reasonable. That is the problem. The system did not fail dramatically. It functioned exactly as designed, filtering out what did not match expectation. And that design had consequences. The shock arrives not in the form of new destruction, but accountability. Admiral Husband Kimmel and General Walter Short are relieved of command. Careers end in silence, not scandal. Their removal satisfies a political need, but leaves a deeper question unresolved. If they are guilty, then so is the system that trained them. If they are innocent, then the danger is far greater. Because it means Pearl Harbor was not a fluke. It was predictable. Not in hindsight, but in structure. Years pass. Pearl Harbor becomes doctrine. Never again becomes a guiding principle of American intelligence, shaping radar networks, early warning systems, threat analysis, and strategic culture. Normalcy bias is named, studied, warned against, and yet it never disappears, because warnings rarely arrive with certainty. They arrive fragmented, incomplete, uncomfortable. They rarely sound like emergencies. The final truth of Pearl Harbor is not about surprise attack. It is about interpretation. The warning existed, the signal was real, the danger was present. What failed was the human instinct to wait for clarity, even when clarity only comes after disaster. Pearl Harbor did not teach America to listen harder. It taught America to listen differently. And the cost of learning that lesson was paid before the lesson was understood.